Welcome to the Alpine Property Podcast with your hosts, me, Steve Thomas.
And myself, Leslie Thomas.
We are the husband and wife team behind Alpine Property Investments, helping clients to find their dream property in the mountains of France and Switzerland.
The aim of this podcast is to share with you everything to do with purchasing a ski property, including the where, what, why, and how to buy.
With real insider information that comes from knowing the mountains as intimately as we do. To us, this is not just a business, but a real demonstration of helping clients invest in lifestyle.
We want this podcast to be your go-to place for all things buying and owning a ski property.
Welcome to the Alpine Property Podcast with me, Steve Thomas. In this second episode of the 24-25 winter season, I want to turn the clock back right to the beginning when we first launched the podcast and return to the episode where we discussed the legal ins and outs of buying a property in the French Alps. In this latest episode, with clients often expressing a nervousness when they first think about buying and owning a property in the French Alps, thanks to them knowing very little about the process involved, I thought it a good idea to revisit this topic and recap both what's involved in the run-up and during the legal purchase process. With many clients buying off-plan new build property, within this podcast, I will also recover the basic principles involved in reclaiming the VAT off your new purchase. Having done your research on what and where you'd like to buy, you'll have discovered that unlike Switzerland and Austria, there are no restrictions in France on what foreign buyers are able to purchase. With all properties sold in France being freehold in nature, your final decision may be to purchase a leaseback property, complete with management company, rental obligation, and a minimum lease period of 9 years, and is often found in larger developments that include facilities such as a swimming pool and spa area. Alternatively, you may settle on a Loy-Montagne property, which again comes with a rental obligation, but instead of a management company and minimum lease period, owners are simply obliged to rent their apartment through a local agency via a signed mandate. Here, owners can change agency should they wish at the end of the mandate period, typically 2 to 3 years in length. While for those that choose a classic freehold property, these properties enjoy no obligation to rent. You simply either keep the property just for your own exclusive use, or should you want, you can still opt to rent for as little or as long as you desire with a local agency in the resort, should you wish. Whether your property is a new build with a future delivery date, or a resale that is occupiable as soon as the purchase process is complete, France's property purchase process is protected by strict and straightforward real estate laws. One of the most secure countries in the world to buy both resale and off-plan new build property, buyers' interests and funds are fully protected. While there are small variations between new build and resale legal purchase processes that include terminology, the basic premise is the same: 2 separate contracts and the use of a French notary to carry out the transaction. The notary, a public official who is appointed by the French Ministry of Justice and who acts impartially on behalf of the state, is a qualified lawyer and is involved in all property transactions. Contracts drawn up by these public officers guarantees its legality and authenticity, and while it is common practice for French nationals to use the same notary as the seller, for non-resident clients such as those from the UK, it is also possible for the buyer and seller to use their own independent representation, where notaries simply split the fees associated with the sale between them. Here at Alpine Property Investments, we are pleased to recommend to all our clients, English-speaking notaries, that we have worked with for over 10 years, who will be pleased to represent you in the purchase process. For those who are looking to purchase a brand new apartment or chalet in the French Alps ahead of your visit, some developers, like those that we work with in the Les Sybelles ski domain, will allow clients to option a property they have identified for a short period, thereby taking it off the market ahead of their visit to ensure that it is still available when they arrive. Then, once you've visited, done your due diligence, decided you want to progress with the purchase, and the introduction has been made to the notary, congratulations, you're on your way. The first step of the new build legal process is the reservation contract. This contract contains all of the information pertaining to the property being purchased, including an outline of the stage payments, completion date, plans of the property, any parking space and cave allocation, notice description that documents the materials of the build along with any French mortgage details for those taking finance to facilitate their purchase. Once both the notary and client are happy with the reservation contract, having gone through this in detail together, it's time to sign electronically using a secure system like DocuSign. For those purchasing with cash, there is one further stage ahead of signing the reservation contract where clients have to complete a handwritten declaration. On receipt of the countersigned contract, under French law, for those purchasing in their own names instead of a company, there is then a 10-day cooling off period where you have the right to withdraw should you wish. Notaries will always have clients sign a reservation contract in their own names for this purpose. For those that decide their circumstances are such that the property needs to be held in a company, this can be organized for the final contract or deed, and I will cover this later in the podcast. As part of the reservation contract process, buyers will be responsible for paying a deposit of between 2 to 5% of the purchase price onto the notary's escrow account. This sum does not go to the developer. It sits on account until the final contract stage, which I'll cover shortly. In general terms, where a project delivery exceeds 2 years, the reservation deposit is 2%, and under 2 years is 5%. There are exceptions to this, but the deposit amount is always documented in the reservation contract. All property purchase payments must be made in euros. It is not possible to pay in currencies such as sterling or dollars. For those non-residents therefore needing to complete a currency transfer, the best option is to use a FX currency broker instead of completing a bank-to-bank transfer. Using a dedicated broker ensures not only do you secure better exchange rates, they're also able to advise on when the best time is to buy currency in advance. For clients in particular who are purchasing with cash and needing to convert currency, the use of an FX broker can save you thousands. Here at Alpine Property Investments, we would be pleased to recommend the broker we use personally should you be seeking a suggestion of who to use. It's also worth noting here that for any client that is seeking to purchase a property with a French mortgage, should they not get it, as with the reservation contract cooling off period, under French law, the buyer is again able to withdraw from the purchase ahead of the final contract stage, unless this suspensive condition has been removed. French mortgages take the form of repayment, interest only, or a mix of both, with terms typically being either 15, 20, or 25 years. Available to both EU and non-EU citizens, loan-to-value ratios typically range up to between 70 to 80%, depending on a client's nationality, country of residence, savings, type of property being purchased, and whether they're either salaried or a company owner taking dividends. 100% mortgages are also possible in certain cases, which involve depositing assets with the bank. Many French mortgages have the benefit of being fixed for the term of the mortgage, ensuring the amount you pay each month is the same. It's always best before planning a visit to know how much you can borrow, as this will help in deciding on the properties you want to see while in the French Alps. Should any listeners who are thinking of purchasing a French property with finance want to discuss possible French mortgages, we'd be pleased to recommend brokers to assist you with this. Please contact me via the show notes or via the Alpine Property Investments website, and I'll be pleased to introduce you to the English-speaking representatives we've been working with for over 12 years. Taking a French mortgage can be advantageous if renting, as in France the interest on the mortgage can be offset against the income. Likewise, for those non-residents purchasing property in excess of 1.3 million, taking a mortgage is also a way to stay under the wealth tax threshold. Returning now to the legal process of purchasing a new build property, before it's possible to sign the final contract, otherwise known as the acte de vente or deed, two stages need to be completed. Firstly, the developer must provide the notary with the GFA. This is an underwriting from the French banks that acts as a guarantee that should the developer go bankrupt, sadly pass away, or have a force majeure circumstance where the property cannot be finished for some reason, then the banks will step in to complete the development. The GFA itself is obtained from the bank and passed to the notary once the developer has achieved a specific percentage of sales, typically 40 to 60% of the development. Some developers will wait to begin construction until they have pre-sold the specific number of properties to obtain the GFA, while others, like the developer we work with in Les Abeilles, begin construction using their own funds and request the GFA during the construction phase. During the 18 years of Alpine Property Investments selling ski properties in the French Alps, we've never had a GFA enacted, and this shows how secure and safe it is when buying an off-plan property in France. The second step before final contract stage applies to those obtaining a French mortgage. Once the reservation contract is signed, you typically have 2 to 3 months to finalize the finance needed to sign the final contract. As with the reservation contract, there is also a 10-day cooling-off period once the mortgage offer is printed. Final contracts cannot be signed during this period, and loan offers are generally valid for 30 days. Once the GFA and loan offer, where applicable, have been granted, the final contract can be signed. This must be done in France and can be done either in person or via a POA for someone to sign on the client's behalf in France. This is typically your notary or a responsible person within their team, such as the secretary. As with the reservation contract, a draft deed will be prepared, which you will go through with the notary. Contained within this deed will be the amount payable by the client at the time of final contract signature. These funds need to be on the notary's escrow account ahead of signing, and a proof of funds document will need to be submitted to show where the funds have originated. For the actual sum required, this will follow the stage payment plan laid out in the reservation contract and will align with the stage the construction is at, should construction be underway. In the case of a finance purchase, it's always capital that's paid first. Downloads of the mortgage will occur as required and as stages are met. As with the reservation contract, only once both the client and notary are happy will the deed of sale be signed. In France, Irrespective of the property being a new build or a resale, it's always the buyer that pays the purchase costs, so you only pay once during a property ownership. For new build properties, the total purchase cost to include notary fees, land registration fees, and associated purchase taxes will be approximately 2 to 2.5% of the purchase price. Where a mortgage has to be registered by the notary, this adds an additional 1% to the charges. When it comes to resale properties, as mentioned already, the principles of the legal process are pretty much the same, with again 2 contracts to sign. The first contract, otherwise known as the compromis de vente or promise de vente, is the first legally binding document that binds seller and buyer together. Within the contract, clients will find the description of the property, including details of the plot, confirmation of ownership of the title deeds, price, agency fees, and deposit payable, which for resales can be as much as 10%, again being held on the notary's escrow account. This first contract will also outline all the obligations, declarations, and forfeits of both purchaser and seller. It will list any agreed suspensive conditions, such as purchase subject to finance, completion date, any fixtures or fittings agreed in the purchase price, and the dossier de diagnostic, amongst others. As with signing the reservation contract, when buying off plan, by signing as individuals instead of a company, the compromis de vente enjoys a 10-day cooling off period where the buyer can withdraw without penalty. Once the cooling off period is concluded, the deposit is paid. The resale final contract or acte de vente typically takes 2 to 3 months to prepare for you to go through with your notary, obtain the finance, and create the POA documents if not signing in person. Much of the same information contained in the compromis de vente is contained in the act, and again a client's notary will not have the client sign until they and the client are okay to progress. Unlike new build properties where purchase costs are 2 to 2.5%, in the case of resale properties, these typically range from 7 to 9% of the purchase price. Be it a new build or a resale property, for those whose circumstances warrant it, there are no restrictions in France for purchasing a property in the name of a company. French companies include SALs, SCIs, URLs, and Salle de Families. These different company structures can be chosen to suit a client's circumstances, and for the best solution, expert advice should be sought. This can be discussed at length with the notaries we recommend as part of the legal process. For those that suit a company structure to hold the property within, some of the advantages include the ability to purchase the property with multiple partners, be they related or unrelated, have the option for tax-free ownership transfer, passing shares to children and grandchildren, as well as tax efficiency in wealth tax and inheritance tax. And that's it. Be it an off-plan or a resale property, once you've signed the acte de vente, you are now the legal owner of your very own property in the French Alps. Congratulations, it's all yours. Having now completed the legal process, for those who've bought a property with a rental obligation, such as a loyer montant covered at the beginning of the podcast, or for those thinking of renting their classic freehold property when not using it, then as long as it's a new build property and 3 of 4 para-hotelier services, those of cleaning, laundry, concierge or breakfast are used, in France, the VAT of 20% can be reclaimed should you wish. The full amount of VAT can either be reclaimed at the end of construction or in some cases in 2 stages, one at the end of the first year of construction to wherever the stage payment the property is up to, and the balance at the end of construction. VAT reclaim takes 2 to 3 months to receive from point of application and comes back as a lump sum. It's worth noting that all legal contracts and any mortgages are at the full VAT inclusive price, VAT being reclaimed post-legal process. To comply with the VAT reclaim requirements, owners of Loi-Montagne and classic freehold properties must sign a rental mandate with a local agency in resort that can offer 3 of the services I mentioned a moment ago. As we as a company don't sell leaseback management company lease properties, I have purposely not included reference to this type of property here. Within the obligations to reclaim the VAT, owners must offer their property to rent for a minimum of 8 to 9 weeks in the winter and 2 to 3 weeks in the summer. Some, but not all of the winter weeks must also be high season. Given Christmas, New Year and the 4 weeks of February are classed as high season, for a client seeking to use the property Christmas, New Year and February half term, for example, this is okay as the other French February holiday high season weeks are being offered. To reclaim the VAT, it is not possible to take all 6 weeks of the high season, nor is it possible to make the property unrentable by means such as elevating the rental price above market levels. For classic freehold property owners, should they want to stop renting at some point in the future, this is certainly possible, provided any outstanding VAT is repaid. VAT owing is calculated on a sliding scale, a 1/20th deduction per year of renting. Therefore, for anyone who rents for 20 years, if they stop at this point, there is no VAT to repay. For an owner who wants to stop, for example, after 5 years, there's 75% to repay, 10 years, 50%, and so on. Should any listener be in the process of or thinking about purchasing a Loi-Montagne or classic freehold new build property and are thinking of reclaiming the VAT and would like to talk to someone in more detail around this subject and who can organise the reclaim for you, please contact me via the show notes and I will be pleased to provide a recommendation, an introductory email. And that's it for today's episode. I hope you found the episode of interest, and for anyone considering buying a property in the French Alps, are now reassured that your money is safe and secure, and the process, while appearing a little alien, follows a very clear, rigid process from the point you agreed to purchase to taking the keys. With all information up to date at the time of recording this podcast, having a good notary to represent you in the process is essential, and those we recommend have helped hundreds of clients purchase their dream home anywhere from as little as a few €100,000 right up to multi-million luxury homes. Whether you're looking for a holiday home, an investment property, or a long-term residence, we're here to hold our clients' hands through the whole legal process from the beginning to the end. If there's anything you feel we've not covered, have a specific question in mind, or would generally like to have a conversation about buying and owning a property in the Swiss or French Alps, then please reach out to us. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to the Alpine Property Podcast. If you would like to find out more, please visit our website, Alpine Property Investments, where you can also sign up to our regular email newsletter. If you've enjoyed listening to the podcast, we would love it if you would rate and review it, as this also allows the podcast to be shared more widely too. If you have any questions or comments, please do reach out to us via email. The details, along with our website, can be found in the show notes.